In this video, let us see the top 10 bizarre or unusual afterlife experiments. So, number 10, EVP experiments. EVP, electronic voice phenomena, is a mysterious event in which human sounding voices from an unknown source are heard on recording tape, in radio station noise, and in other electronic media. Most often, EVPs have been captured on audio tape. The mysterious voices are not heard at the time of recording. It is only when the tape is played back that the voices are heard. Some skeptics say interpreting random sounds into voices in their own language would sound like random noise to a foreign speaker. Interesting fact is the 2005 film White Noise starring Michael Keaton focuses exclusively on the phenomena of EVP as the main character attempts to contact his recently deceased wife. Number 9, Dead White Experiment. This is not the official name of this experiment, but I thought it had a nice ring to it. In 1907, Dr. Duncan McDougall of Haverhill, Massachusetts, placed a six terminal patients on a special designed bed built on a scale and weighted them as they took their last breath. Based on results from the experiments, the patients lost approximately three quarters of an ounce, equal to 21.3 grams. Interesting fact is McDougall's complaints in his journal about not being able to find dogs dying of the natural causes led to the suspicion he was poisoning dogs to conduct his experiments. Also, these experiments inspired a film called 21 Grams starring Cian Penn. Number 8, and the God Helmet Experiment. The God Helmet refers to a controversial experiment in neurotheology, study of correlations of neural phenomena by Michael Persinger. When a modified snowmobile helmet is placed on the subject's head, magnetic fields start stimulating the brain. Persinger claims that near-death experiment experiences such as bright lights, the presence of God, and seeing dead relatives are produced. Interesting fact is, Persinger claims at least 80% of his participants experience a presence beside them in a room, which they variously say feels like God or someone they knew who had died. Number 7, the Philip experiment. The Philip experiment was conducted in the early 1970s by the Toronto Society of Psychical Research. The purpose of the experiment was to see if a fictitious historical character could manifest itself through the group's effort of concentration. They named the ghost Philip and gave the ghost a personality and a complete background, even drawing a portrait to make him seem more real. The eight members in the group also memorized the fictional biography and studied the period in which Philip was supposed to have lived. Interesting fact is, the experiment came to a strange end when one member of the group broke ranks and stated aloud in a reply to Philip, "We only made you up, you know." All communication stopped. Once the group denied that Philip was real, he ceased to exist. The number 6, Ghost Hunters. Ghost Hunters is a reality television series that debuted in 2004. A team of investigators traveled to locations reported to be haunted. To locate ghosts, the team has experimented with Geiger counters, EMF electromagnetic field scanners, infrared and night vision cameras, handheld digital video cameras, digital audio recorders, and laptop computers. The ghost hunters claim to have several good recordings of strange mists, odd lights, moving objects, and shadowy figures that manifest before the camera and disappear quickly. Interesting fact is, critics and skeptics of the program point to a lack of scientific methodology and critical examination in their investigations, as well as questionable production aspects, including editing. So, number five, Harry Houdini's secret code experiment. Houdini's training in magic allowed him to expose many mediums as frauds that had successfully fooled many scientists and academics, fearing that spiritualists would exploit his legacy by pretending to contact him after his death. Houdini left his wife a secret code. 10 words were chosen at random from a letter written by Conan Doyle that he would use to contact her from the afterlife. After Houdini's death on October 31st, 1926, a friend of Doyle, a Reaver Arthur Ford, claimed to have contacted both Houdini and his deceased mother at a seance through his spirit guide. Ford stated the message received was in the pre-arranged code worked out by Houdini and his wife before Houdini's death. Interesting fact is Houdini's wife Bess held yearly seances on Halloween for 10 years after Houdini's death, but Houdini never appeared. Number 4, the afterlife experiments. Gary Squad, a professor of psychology at the University of Arizona, wrote a book. He wrote a book in 2002 called The Afterlife Experiments. In the experiments, he used mediums and sitters, someone who had very close relationship with people now dead, to investigate whether or not there is life after death. The mediums consistently came up with the specific facts and names about the sitters reported with friends and relatives that the skeptics have been unable to explain away as fraud, cold reading, or lucky guesses. For the first sitter, the results showed the mediums ranged from being 77 to 95% accurate. The average hit rate was 83%. Interesting fact is when the 83% hit rate of the medium was compared with the 36% of the control group, squads claims the statistical probability of the control group difference occurring by chance is 1 in 10 million. Number 3, Sir William Crookes experiment. Sir William Crookes was an English alchemist and physicist and attended the Royal College of Chemistry in London. One of Crookes' accomplishments was the Crookes tube, which would lead to the discovery of cathode X-rays, and the electron. Crookes had developed an interest in spiritualism, possibly by the untimely death of his younger brother in 1867 at the age of 21. In 1870, Crookes decided that science had a duty to experiment with the phenomena associated with spiritualism. The conditions he imposed on mediums were as follows: it must be at my own house and my own selection of friends and spectators under my own conditions, and I may do whatever I like as regards as apparatus. Among the phenomena he said he witnessed were movement of bodies at a distance, changes in the weights of bodies, levitation, appearance of luminous objects, appearance of phantom figures, and the appearance of writing without human circumstances, which would point to the agency of an outside intelligence. He reported on this research in 1874 concluded that these phenomena could not be explained and that further research would be useful. Interesting fact is most scientists were convinced that spiritualism was fraudulent, and Crook's final report so outraged the scientific establishment that there was talk of depriving him of his fellowship of the Royal Society. Number two, the reincarnation experiment. Australia psychologist Peter Ramster made a documentary in 1983 called The Reincarnation Experiments. During the experiments, he found very convincing evidence of past lives. One of the individuals featured in the film remembered a life during the French Revolution. When under trance, she spoke in French without any trace of an accent, understood and answered questions to put to her in French, and knew the names of streets which had changed and were only discoverable on old maps. Interesting fact, General George S. Patton was a staunch believer in reincarnation and often claimed to have seen vivid, lifelike visions of his ancestors and also believed he was a reincarnation of Carthaginian General Hannibal. Number one, the school experiment. In 1993, four psychic researchers and observers embarked on a series of experiments in the Norfolk village of Skull, England. For 5 years, more than 500 experiments were carried out. During some of the experiments, objects materialized, lights danced, and solid beings appeared. Luminous spheres also flew around the room in apparently intelligent manner. Interesting fact is James Webster, a professional musician with 40 years of experience investigating paranormal phenomena, came to the following conclusion: I was unable to discover any sign of fraud, and it seems to me that fraud could not have been possible, both because of the type of phenomena observed by and by the conditions in which they came out. The conditions which they came about. So these are the top 10 bizarre afterlife experiments happened in the history.